Homage is really a funny thing. It's a very tricky line to walk between honoring something you have a deep affection for and sharing it with the world, and then just straight up copying it, thus making the audience wonder why they aren't just watching the original thing instead of wasting time with yours. We've seen it done right, creating properties equal to or even surpassing their predecessors, and then we've seen it, well, not done as well. Buckaroo Banzai is essentially one giant nod to 30s and 40s pulp adventures and science fiction, most specifically Doc Savage, centering on the titular rock star scientist and crime fighter, and his team of similar crime-fighting super geniuses who have just discovered the means for interdimensional travel. However, the timing could not have been worse, as not only is Banzai's archenemy, the insane Dr. Lizardo, back for revenge, but an alien ship is threatening to destroy Earth over fears about the nature of the experiment. Will our heroes be able to conquer both threats while Banzai also deals with some personal love issues? Well, not with our liberal coating of 80s filmmaking, it won't. Naturally, being more of a genre throwback piece, the characters are pretty familiar archetypes and the actors embrace that to the T. Be it the stoic yet kind-hearted Peter Weller as Banzai, the maverick and very over-the-top John Lithgow as Lizardo, or Jeff Goldblum as the slightly shy, soft-spoken new recruit to Banzai's team of literally rocking geniuses. Ellen Barkin and Christopher Lloyd do follow suit, though their material is much more limited, and they end up playing second fiddle to Lithgow and Weller, with Barkin being little more than a damsel in distress who gets a few funny lines here and there, while Lloyd is half the time buried in prosthetics, and this is very much Lithgow's show. Though it is cute to see him in a film about scientists breaking certain scientific laws, so that's a little novelty bit. And speaking of archetypes, Buckaroo Banzai wears that cross of 30s and 80s culture and media on its sleeve, and it does so with pride. Garish colors, crazy hairstyles, a synth-heavy soundtrack, the plethora of practical and early blue screen effects, it's all here and loud and proud of it. Frankly, you'll be hard-pressed to find any film out there that's so much a capsule of its era than this one. It literally doesn't get any more 80s than this does. But despite the outlandishness of the presentation, the screenplay by veteran novelist L. Mac Roach is actually a pretty cut-and-dry affair. It's basically those old sci-fi and adventure tropes transposed to the 1980s, with a slight bend of almost Mel Brooksian-style satire, with little visual gags and bits of self-deprecating wit here and there. A lot of the film's humor comes out of just how calmly and nonchalantly the characters deal with the incredible events around them, much like those old pulp novels. The over-the-top qualities are met with a completely straight face in the story, as are other amusing little nods, like Banzai having celebrity status and having a network of fans/agents, a la characters like Doc Savage and The Shadow, working for him, including a father and son helicopter team who help out and even get brought along on the adventure. Or the fact that these crime-fighting geniuses go from physics-defying experiments that invite government ire to performing at some nightclub with the same level of commitment. For how colourful the film is, it's almost remarkable how deadpan it also can be. And yet, despite all the outlandish material and the sci-fi, the film never aspires to have some sort of underlying theme or message or offer any kind of commentary. In fact, it almost seems to spit in the face of all of that. The allegory that comes with any story dealing with aliens or dangerous experiments, or even the idea of Banzai having some kind of trauma from a past relationship, or even the fact that he is essentially born of two cultures, being American but raised in Japan, is summarily dismissed in the same manner that the straightforward threat is. And the story just gets on with things. This is very much a pulp novel kind of trope brought to the screen. The characters exist in a heightened fantasy, and all of this is just business as usual for them. Now, this then begs the question, can non-genre geeks get into a film like this? And in response to that, it really depends. If you enjoy that kind of deadpan juxtaposition style of humor, there is certainly something for you here, as is just the fun of marveling at the oddity that was the 1980s and the fact that it could produce films like this and do it with a completely straight face. However, unlike throwbacks like, say, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the most mileage definitely comes with knowledge of this type of material, and it wouldn't shock me if there were some out there who just couldn't get into it. Director and veteran screenwriter W.D. Richter, the same man who had a hand in the 1970s invasion of the Body Snatchers, has certainly said so many times before. Plus, the film does occasionally feel a little unbalanced in terms of pacing, with the first hour zipping by, while the last half hour as it builds to the climax and the final battle seems to be more of a slog, honestly, and I assume this is mainly down to the decrease in locations, as it doesn't zip about as much. But regardless, I feel Buckaroo Banzai is more what the AVGN movie should have been like. It knows what it is, it knows who it's for, and it doesn't apologize for it, nor try to include any half-baked subtext or bigger ideas to masquerade it as being something it's not. It's a 30s pulp adventure put into the 1980s, and if you can get into that kind of cheese, mania, and flash, Buckaroo Banzai is a trip well worth taking. And hey, it's probably the best thing we have to a Doc Savage movie until Shane Black finally decides to get on with it.